Yes, Alan, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a point about the beasts dying. The pestilence that was on the livestock, and it says all the livestock died. We see livestock immediately after that. So I'm referring to Exodus. What was it? 9, 9, 9, and 11:5. So in Exodus 9:9, we see that there still is beasts, and in Exodus 11:5, there's also beasts. And we remember that when they finally did walk out of Egypt, that Pharaoh pursued them with chariots. So chariots are driven by horses. So it's a figure of speech when it says, and all the cattle died, all the livestock died. It's what you said, much of them, many of them died, but not all.
Yeah, I went through a few commentaries. They're saying exactly what you're saying, Alan. Is the Hebrew language, when it says all the cattle died, it's a little bit loose language. I would say, I hate to use that word, but unfortunately Hebrew is like that.
Yeah. I did want to go over to Isaiah chapter 1, verse 6, concerning swords. Now, it's not the same Hebrew word, but it does have some similarity.
You want me to go there?
That would be great.
Okay.
Isaiah chapter 1.
Yeah.
And we'll start back in verse 4. Where he's addressing, in the beginning of the book of Isaiah, he's addressing the sinful nation of Judah. Because Isaiah is a prophet to Judah, and at the time of this writing is very close to the time where the northern tribes were taken away. They had already had independence for over 100 years, and now they've been carried off, and they were carried off at a time when Isaiah was prophesying, actually, and they were carried off, I think, approximately at the same time of Hezekiah was king. So here we have Isaiah prophesying to Judah at a time when Israel was taken away by Assyria. And he's trying to alarm them. He's sending up a red flare. He's what they would call an alarmist. Today they use that language, right? An alarmist. Fear-mongering kind of thing. That's what they call them today. But here it says in verse 4, alas, a sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord and turned away from him. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel into anger, and they are gone away backwards into corruption and sin. So you see the parallel here to Revelation 11 of Sodom and Egypt. You could say Sodom and Egypt are very similar to this level of wickedness. Why should you be stricken anymore? You continue to revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, the whole heart is faint. And then in verse 6, we see language similar to Job. From the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds, bruises, and putrefying sores that have not been closed, neither have they been bound up or mollified with ointment. Your country is desolate. And he goes down, he continues, with similar language to what we find cities being burned and so forth in Revelation. So I just thought it was interesting to hear that we have this from the sole of the foot to the head. In Job, it says to the crown, that he had these boils.
Alan, I want to say, I love your harmonization. This is the way we should be doing this. There may not be same exact Greek word or Hebrew word. You should go by concepts. This is exactly how we do the comparison. See the description: wounds, bruises, putrefying sores, and they have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. This is a great harmonization. And from sole of the foot even to the head takes us to Job, and from Job to Egypt, plagues on Egypt, and warnings about curses on Israel. All these things should come to our mind. The concept comparison. You just can't do with computer search. The computer search would not hit this. There's no shortcuts. Like computer search might help us in some ways, but the other ways there is no shortcut. You have to go through every verse of every book of the whole Bible and have some good understanding, so that you would be able to do this kind of harmonization. And thank you, Alan. Appreciate your analysis and harmonization.
You're welcome.
Yes, Marlene.
Actually, it's Tom.
Oh, Tom, please go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you. I was considering when you were talking about the moraine, the cattle, and all the different things that the cattle did for them. It was their transportation system. It was their food. You know, actually, some of it was their friend. You know, get animals as very much of a pet. It serves so many of the needs of the people. And I look at today where if something like that would be gone, I compare it to the electric grid when they take it out. That's a source of energy, transportation, and it can go very quickly. And a lot of people don't have the ability to do anything because of where they're living or what they have for resources, and they would die. I mean, they just need it, particularly if it's in an adverse condition like cold weather where we live, or too hot. Down hot and humid will destroy life as well if they're particularly aged individuals. So that, and it's just tremendous if that were to go out, the impact it would have on a nation in general. And they've shown that it can be done, unfortunately. So it's something to keep in mind as to what may happen in the end times. That's all.
Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate very much. I did not think about electricity and energy. Very good analysis. This kind of analysis actually we need for Semyon to work, to understand Semyon. If the beasts, the cattle and the horses, animals were killed in Egypt, what effect it has on Egypt? The equivalent for us, if electricity, all the power grids were knocked down, we would go to the ancient ages. Many people die even for cold as well as hot. If you live in Florida, you will die of this extreme heat. So you don't have anything, like the whole civilization comes to a stop and you perish because you don't have alternatives. But for the alternatives to come up, it will take months, perhaps years. So thinking those lines, like what effect these plagues have on physical Egypt, we can think of these lists, these items that can happen on spiritual Egypt, which is the earth and the cosmos. think, Gail, you have raised your hand. You have a comment.
Yes. Um, okay. Where did I put that? Okay. Um, Here in the Philippines, there's always typhoons. And if you consider that as a plague, then we're always in a plague. When the typhoon, there's one coming, it's huge, they say. So we're all praying it goes away, because a typhoon would destroy everything. Communication, electricity's gone, water's gone, everything. Like if you were living near the shore, tsunami can come. And so we know how it feels most times. We have floods, we have this regularly, yearly. And so we don't trust, I wouldn't trust any of this. We can only trust the Lord. So although we plan like the generators and things like that, but that's all temporary. Now the whatever else is coming, we just have to be prepared. Even just how to light a fire with just using your stick and your stone. So that's the situation here. So with the tribal community, that would be survival. We need to do that too. So maybe that's why the Lord is preparing us here to live a life like that. If it comes to that point that one will be persecuted and you have to run to the mountains, one has to learn how to live in the jungle, tropical jungle. Now, when you were talking about boils, I remember, I don't know if it is connected, when the Ark of the Covenant was stolen by, I forgot, the Philistines, and they got boils. So isn't that also similar? Like, okay, the good guys, the Goshen guys, the people who are of God, didn't get the boils when the Lord was with them. But when the evil people got the Ark of the Covenant, they got the boils, but I don't know exactly what kind of boils they got. But it's also a boil, and it's a curse. It's a plague to them. So thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, the natural disasters like typhoons, hurricanes, and cyclones, they can cause havoc and can knock out our power grids and our bridges, roads, and can bring us down to a halt. That's true. Regarding the Ark of the Covenant, I think Philistines, they take away, they are subjected to some kind of plague. I don't recall. If anybody remembers, please join, help us out.
Well, what was the question?
So when the Ark of the Covenant was taken out by non-Israelites at one instance, and they were struck by some kind of disease, and they would return the Ark back to Israelites. I think it's in Samuel or 1st or 2nd Samuel, I think. What they struck with boils.
Yeah, it actually was hemorrhoids, I think,
Yeah.
which is a kind of a boil. It's an inflammation. It's debilitating. You know, you can't even move. You can't walk. It's really bad. So yeah, that's what happened to them. And I think they even tried to open and look inside the Ark of the Covenant, and a bunch of them were killed for looking inside. That was at the time of Eli and Samuel. Eli's sons were all killed in the battle. They carried the Ark of the Covenant into the battle area because they thought somehow it would be a lucky charm for them. They weren't told to do that. They took it upon themselves. And it failed miserably. So when it was reported back to Eli, your sons have been killed and the Ark of the Lord has been taken. Eli fell off his perch backwards and broke his back and died. So it was a pretty big event when the Ark was taken.
Thanks, Alan. So Gail, you got the answer. It's very similar, but it's not same.
True, but I'm looking at it in a worldview that right now, who has the Ark of the Covenant? Those who follow all the words of the Lord, because in the Ark, there is the commands, and the Goshen, those who have the Lord. So as you said, concept, so this to me is also sort of like a concept. Okay, the Philistines, they're of the world. That's why they got the plagues. And the Egyptians, that's the Philistines too. That's their world. So there is some parallelism I see. And those who have the word and keep the word, those are the remnants. That's also how it is. And also even the Philistines, they took the word, they took the ark, they took everything, but they didn't cherish the word. They didn't really live up to or obey God. So there is something there that also is a reminder for those who really want to follow the Lord. Thank you.
Any other comments? And in the shadow on the physical Egypt, these 10 plagues, the physical Israelites were spared. Do you think there is any parallelism there? Are you seeing any boils-like thing, judgment now in progress, to discern if there are any other thoughts, any other comes to mind? Yes, Alan.
Well, back in Revelation 11, where we see this in verse 5, if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies. If any man will hurt them, he must be killed in this way. And then the following verse is the power to shut heaven and to turn water to blood and the plagues. So it has to do with the enemies, right? If any man will hurt them.
Yeah.
It devours their enemies. So
Yeah.
when we talk about Goshen, it is, in this case here, we can see it. It's not devouring those who are the people of God, who are in good standing, who are faithful.
Yeah.
It's devouring the enemy,
Mm-hmm.
the enemies of God, which we can try to fill that category of people with those who have the mark of the beast, with those who are intentionally trying to kill the Christian church. They are enemies. In Paul writes in one of his letters that they are enemies of the cross of Christ, is the words he uses. So antichrists, as it's used in the book of John, what is it, 1 John, that talks about that?
Yeah. Spirit of
And
Antichrist. Yeah.
Yeah, and false Christs. So these things here that we see, fire proceeds out of their mouth, and that they are killed, and all these other plagues are directed towards the enemies. So those in Goshen are not going to feel the brunt of it or be suffering greatly, but the enemies will be. And then eventually in verse 7, they're overcome and killed. So we don't know in what manner they were killed, but
Yeah.
whatever manner it is, the Simeon on being killed could even just have to mean silenced.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know that.
Yeah, need to explore that. But we read in Revelation 16, first and fifth bowls, golden bowls, those who have mark of the beast and those who worship the beast. So you are worshiping God, and perhaps you are also worshiping the beast. Then you are one of the targets of these boils. And then in Deuteronomy, we learn that in the cursings chapter, God would unleash these boils on Israel also. I see one parallel verse in Revelation. If anybody adds to this book, the plagues would be added to them. I believe this is for Christians. God would add the plagues. It's somewhere at the last portions. Here is the Revelation 22, verse 19. If any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in the book. And there is verse 18, for I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. That is, generally it should be Christians, right, who are hearing the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall also add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. I thought that's interesting. If we add something to the book of Revelation, some Bible students and teachers believe that it holds good for the entire Bible. If you add, God will add the plagues, judgments, not on spiritual Egypt, but on the true church also.
Yeah, and it says every man, or if any man, so it applies individually.
Yeah.
Also, so if somebody misrepresents this book,
Yeah.
and I think it would mean if they misrepresent it deliberately or intentionally,
Right.
trying to deceive by using and misrepresenting the language that is found in it, then they are guilty there.
That's right.
Probably not for someone who makes an honest mistake and just doesn't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to be very careful. Yeah. We'll go back to Marlene.
Which is Tom again.
Oh, Tom, hi.
Couple of things. If the one man is or a woman that tries to add to or take away is a leader and causes the nations to go the wrong way, then it's more than just one that's going to be impacted by that. Could be a whole nation that's impacted, where they're trying to change or misconstrue what is really written in the book of Revelation. That's one idea. A couple other things that you asked earlier about was what are some things today that are like this as far as plagues on us. One of them is when we had the COVID disease, it's been shown that the cure is probably worse than the disease in many cases, and you hear of people dying of that now. You've also had the open borders that we failed to close, and fentanyl is coming through, and this drug is killing many people. The third thing is that just the open borders themselves lets gangs like MS-13 and various others, people that want to destroy our nation, they're coming in left and right. And finally, there's the people that are seeking power. They're wealthy. They can rule by pushing things through where common people would have no way of stopping them. So this power seeking is what they're trying to become and acquire notoriety. And that's one way of doing it, by actually doing things wrong. So those are a few things I can toss your way.
You can see somehow these judgments are unleashed here.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And another comment, it's like we have so many diseases. And God says, if you obey me, I won't put these diseases that I put on the Egyptians. And we just seem to be plagued, and especially young children. I know of people that are, their son is the son of the doctor and new at it, but he said he's seeing all these children coming in with diseases that typically adults have. So disease is just prevalent.
That's so true, Marlene. They're discovering new diseases never seen before, new kind of issues. They say like sudden death syndrome, no explanation, people just die in sleep. And they saw like when we were going to United Church of God, like this was like more than a decade ago. One of the members' son got cancer. Half of his face bloated out. It's a skin cancer on face. And he was admitted to cancer hospital in Houston that is world famous, one of the renowned hospitals. They have a huge children's wing. And eventually the boy died, but his parents, both of them were attendees of United. And they mentioned the whole big wing has full of children with very similar deformities of cancer, and then have never heard or seen such proportions of children being affected with these diseases, ascribing to same thing that you're saying. Children are in multiple ways they were affected now than seen or heard in previous generations. So it seems like something is happening. Yeah, Alan.
Yeah, if we're going to go to guessing at fulfillments on these things, I would say one of the chief fulfillments of it now, or let me say it this way, the plague that is on those who alter the words of that book. Who do we know that alters it more than anyone other than the atheist agenda? The Darwinian evolutionists that claim it's all just a fairy tale. They have altered it in that they claim it's completely invalid. And even though the Bible has been in the hearts of Americans from the beginning of the foundation of America, and it was taught It was used to teach reading in the school system. Today, we have this other agenda, which has taken away the book of Revelation to where a teacher cannot even have that book, the Bible, on their desk at school, lest it offend someone. So this atheist agenda is guilty as being an enemy of God, an anti-Christ organization that is taking away the book of Revelation and all the books, the gospel itself. And it's causing the plagues of godlessness in this nation as children grow up in households that have no sense of accountability to their maker. And they do not even have any teaching about that. So what kind of plagues are going to be born out of that agenda? I would say many, including suicide.
Yeah, we have more suicides than ever now.
Yeah,
And there was yeah, go ahead.
because the atheist agenda is a doctrine of hopelessness and meaninglessness. The earth is meaningless. The solar system is meaningless. There's no purpose of our existence. So it leaves people with hopelessness, and that lends you to depression and suicide.
Yeah, many of the Christian children, when they go to universities, they were subjected to this indoctrination and they lose their faith in God.
If ever there was an antichrist philosophy, it's that one, at least in our day, for today, it's that one.
So
I'm done.
the plagues is one thing, and second thing is they lose their salvation ever. They would not make it into kingdom ever if you are mess up with the word of God, especially the book of Revelation. And there's one woman, this lady fought forever to get the prayer out of schools in US. She fought, and finally she was able to accomplish that. They finally took off Christian prayer from all the schools in the United States. And one day she was in a hotel or some place. There were some kind of ferocious dogs, some bulldog or something, and they attacked her and killed her. She was killed by the dogs, just like Jezebel was killed. So there are consequences, there are signatures, even in their killing, the way they perish and the way the plagues unleash on the people. I think they have signatures, if we see. Yes, Marlene. Or Tom.
Yeah, my comment, both of us actually, my commentizing with what Alan was saying and what you were saying about how the physical things we're dealing with show what's going on spiritually. And you have all these children with these diseases. It's like because they are so spiritually untaught. And it's just showing this is, you're spiritually just a mess. And you've got these diseases. And I've had a lot of experience when I've doing substituting, and I would take my Bible and read it, and I was amazed at how many Bible things came up. And I was continued to allowed to read my Bible for like 20 years doing that, smaller school system. But yeah, one of the last times when I subbed before I stopped, I was doing a middle school class and something came up. And so the topic of lying came up. So I mentioned, about somehow got into the 10 Commandments. And there were students in the class that had never heard of the 10 Commandments. It was like they didn't know what we were talking about. So you've got this generation coming up of children who don't even know what God is about. And you look at our educational system, when schools were going to school was made mandatory back in the day, there were parents that were angry. They said, it's my job to teach my children, not the government. So when you make a decision that's wrong to begin with, obviously it ends up as it is today. You know, you're totally turning against God. So interesting how if you go back and trace where you went wrong originally, you can see what how things should have been different. And Tom's got a comment.
Yeah, I think one of the verses, sorry, I didn't look it up. It talks about in the end times there'd be a famine of the word, but it's not just the famine of the word, it's the famine of hearing the word. And it's so many times they don't put the word hearing in there. And that's where it is. It's the fact that people don't do what they know they should be doing. It's because they're not hearing, they're not reading it, they're not studying it. And that is where they have the downfall. It's not that it's not there. It is. We've got more Bibles in the world now than they ever did. And that's all.
Very good comments, both of you. So something being attacked is hearing the word of God also. So when we take away Bibles and take away, not necessarily physically take away Bibles, you would not have time for Bible study or interest in studying Bible. Somehow our youth is convinced that they can't understand or they don't have interest and they don't have time. How do we help as true church to generate interest, to generate the value of the instructions of Bible? That's a question. Like the true church should be doing the work of God, bringing many sons to glory against these dark forces of the world, of the cosmos. They're doing their dirty work of taking away our children. The Christian children, when they go to universities, they come back as atheists or agnostics. Yes, Alan.
And that's generally because universities today do not allow freedom of speech. They don't allow the defense attorney to speak. They only allow the prosecuting attorney to speak to the student.
Yeah, exactly.
So of course they're going to be persuaded because they have not heard the defense. And they don't allow the defense to speak. So they have one-sided information, which turns the hearts of young people. They get fully persuaded that mom and dad taught me something that was not true, namely the Bible. So this is the situation. We don't have freedom of speech in a place where there's supposed to be open exchange of ideas. In an environment where the university used to be a place where you could have a debate on both sides of an issue. But now you do not have that because of protests. And today we have many protests. If a given conservative speaker comes to give a talk, they shut the hall down because of the threat of violence. So this is how Satan works. He threatens violence if you don't obey him. So intimidation tactics have been from the beginning of the world. This is why when Nehemiah was building the wall, they had to have a sword in one hand, because building that, when you're building a spiritual structure, you have resistance. You have the enemy. And you have to have a sword in your hand, which is the word of God. So I know we kind of got off track a little bit from your study. No,
Yeah,
I'll be quiet now.
that's fine. We are still within the bounds of scripture. And some of the issues we are facing, even as these judgments are unleashed, we see the principle that people are marked. Somehow they are marked on their foreheads or someplace for either for these plagues and judgments or protection from these things. So we just read in Revelation 16, there are two categories of people these boils would come on. One is have the mark of the beast, and second category is they worship the beast. What could that mean, worshipping the beast? Is it possible that we can worship the beast? Yes, Marlene, then Gail. Marlene or Tom.
Yeah. I think, well, obviously you can worship anything. And people have proven that. If they're going after wealth, or if they're going after some kind of power that they want, and it's given to them because of what they've done, which is probably something that's evil, that is not good. And God says you can't worship anything except Him. So that's why they kept all these idols away.
But in this context, Tom, worshipping beast, it's very specific to the beast. Any insight into that?
Well, the beast is going to be someone that's in authority. It's going to be an authoritative figure.
Okay.
Because that's a governmental structure.
Hmm.
So that you're backing the government on, that's not right. And the government, of course, has the force to implement that throughout the nation, whether it's some kind of a taxation, whether it's something that they can or cannot do. They can take things away from you, and that you would otherwise have freedom of. There's a whole movement going on now that you won't own anything. You'll just be happy with not owning anything. It'll just be a rent that you'll pay or a fee. And that's the first step towards slavery. Why did the Israelites fall into slavery by the Egyptians? Go back and give that some thought. But they were sucked into it. All of a sudden they found themselves as slaves. Of course, you look back what Joseph did, and he took all the wealth, all the extra food and everything, stored it up, and then he sold it back to the people. Oh, who bought that in the first place? That was the taxes on the people that Joseph used to acquire all the food that he saved up. And he sold it back to them, and then they were in servitude to him. It was to the Egyptian king. It's like they bought their own demise. They paid for their own demise. But once the government gets involved and has authority over a great number of people, then they can do what they want. There's no way out.
Interesting. The taxing is one thing they can control. I think it's a step ahead of paying taxes. Of course, we were told to pay Caesar to what belongs to Caesar and render to God what belongs to him. But it is just more than paying taxes and putting up with their unreasonable legislation. But this is, you are worshipping the beast. I mean, you're totally selling yourself out for that system or whatever. We don't know how they translate. I think as we study like this, more things would be unfolded. Thank you.
Part of that is what you're talking about is what do you worship? And it comes down to what do you put your trust in? And is there
Okay.
fear and all those things? I mean, I think we got a taste of it with the COVID experience. How did you respond to that when they said you must wear a mask? You must get vaccinated or you must do whatever. I mean, how did you respond? And I think that's an indicator of how easily you could get sucked into worshiping the beast. Is fear driving it? Are you trusting God? Are you making a stand against this and say this is right? I'm not going to be doing this. Or how do you do it? And you go back to the Israelites. You know, when Jacob's family first came over there, Pharaoh offered for the Israelites to come and work for them, for the Egyptians. If you have any Israelites that want to come and do stuff for us and work for us, you know, send them on over. So I think that's part of how they get sucked into this system and how easily we could get sucked into worshiping the beast, because now you have to rely on their system of buying and selling. And can you say, no, I'm not going to do that? Are you even aware of that's what you're doing? You're being controlled. And like I said, it comes down to what are you really worshiping? Where is your trust and where is your loyalty?
I could add that in Canada, when the truckers were complaining about everything that they couldn't do, the government simply closed all their bank accounts down.
Yeah, I heard
They-
about that.
They just took it over. Nothing else they could do about it.
Yeah. But could there be some people who are actually worshipping and defending government or beast? I mean, we have to define the beast. Some of the governments can transition themselves into beasts, right?
Well, some would say it's already a beast. And the way they take control of things. But worshiping is the people that are part of it. There are many that get into government, and I've always found it interesting that you look at the wages they're paid. Even the president's what, 400,000 or something like that, $500,000. And when they leave office, 2 years later, they're multimillionaires and can buy $35 million houses on the coast.
Mhm.
Not to name anyone, but where do they get that money from? That is, you don't make that on 400,000 a year. I know.
Yeah.
So the people and the government, if you look at how they want to go in and make changes in the government, there are just as many people on the left and on the right that are taking money, and they don't want to change.
Hmm.
So nobody wants to vote to fix things. The fix is going to hurt them. So they worship what they're involved in.
And I've heard news stories about how people are just going to revolt against all this perversion and all these evil things going on. And so because of the result of revolting against that and making a stand, it will swing the other way, where you won't be allowed to do anything. You know, like the Catholics will dominate and say, you can't do that behavior anymore, and then take it to the extreme and control everybody. You know, so you must keep Sunday or whatever they want to say.
Or the Islam
Or
could
the
say
Islam.
we have to keep Friday. You never know. There's more and more people of different faiths and beliefs coming into our country, and sometimes I wonder if they want that. The government wants that because then they'll have more people in the workforce, because we don't have youngsters. We're killing them off through abortion, dropping the population that way. There's going to be too many older people and not enough younger people in the workforce.
Yeah. Very interesting things you mentioned, Guyleen. the chips, technology, mind control, vaccinations. I think we are somehow experiencing things, but we are not able to harmonize the data that we are seeing and hearing with some of the things that are written in Book of Revelation. This beast does not come and tell, worship me. It's the false prophet, the second entity, that actually promotes the beast. He causes them to worship the beast and make an image to the beast, so that image can both speak and cause those who do not worship the beast to be killed. So we shouldn't take out false prophet from picture. So they both beast and false prophet, they work hand in hand, even though they hate each other. So Revelation is laying out things at a very high level with Semyon. And now we have to correlate what we are seeing with those things written at high level in Revelation. Yes, Alan.
I think we also have to realize that in ages past, many, many people thought during the Industrial Revolution, World War I comes, the Great Depression comes after that, and World War II comes. They all thought it was the end of the age at that time. Many people did.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we look at our world today, we see all these fantastic things like AI on the horizon. And we have similar thoughts, and we evaluate our world as possibly the end of the age also, even as they did. But if we grow old and die, and the next generation and the one after that come up, they will see newer things that we can't even imagine. So we have to allow for the possibility that that's the way it could be. As hard as we want and as our desire to understand the symbolism of Revelation, we may grow old and die, and it could be for generations to come for the actual fulfillment. I think we have to allow for that possibility. At the same time, consider that it could be our day as well, without losing our enthusiasm and losing our fire to remain faithful. We have to believe that whatever way it goes, that we individually will remain faithful to the end of our own lives.
Yeah, that's right. End of the age, or the last days. But we tend to view that all these events are pushed to the end times, very end. There's a theory behind this. We were all influenced to one extent or to other by theory. There are actually two theories. They appeared at some point 100 years ago. Those are two important concepts. One is called preterism, other is called futurism. Both came from Catholic Church, not directly, but they put their people and presented as if it came from some independent scholars. The preterism says all the events of the prophecies, they were actually fulfilled before first century or around first century, and what is left is just second coming of Christ. That is preterism. And within few months or an year, they also released this another theory, that is futurism. Nothing is fulfilled, nothing is going on now. Everything would happen in future, just before the second coming. So nothing is happening now. So these two doctrines were just released simultaneously almost, if you see the span of history, and that really influenced Christians, so that it's a big deception, so that we do not even suspect that things are still now going on. Actually, they are going on for the last 2000 years. Several things written in Book of Revelation. So we tend to push it to the end or push it way into the past or way into the future, these two things. We don't think that it is happening now. This, some people say, so that we don't focus on Catholic Church as evil person, evil entity. So we will look at some other thing or shift our attention to either future or past, but not the current. So that's their theory. But the more recent research and studies, like, they seem to indicate in Book of Revelation, several of these things are actually happening. Especially the beast and the false prophet, the scripts, the image of the beast. I think this is happening for lots of time. We are not aware of it. It doesn't say at the end, last end, like 6 months before second coming of Christ, that these would happen. It doesn't say that. Like, so what I mean to say is, like, instead of putting everything to the end of the age and end time, I know that was abused by churches of God, including the Protestant churches, end of the age and end times. But some of the scripts are actually running through all through the history of the church, if I am making sense.
Yeah, it's ongoing in that we can see that the beast and the false prophet and the woman who rides the beast, all these roles that are being played are not necessarily human beings or individuals. These are the symbols of powers of darkness that have been around forever and have been attacking the church forever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's not, we can't be looking like at the end of the age, there's going to be some big indicator that's going to suddenly show us, okay, now is the last hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
There was
that
a
these things
Bible.
are ongoing. These things are ongoing.
Yeah.
But we also understand that, yes, there will be some very specific things that will happen only at the last hour. So it makes the challenge is pretty big to get a grip on the whole picture.
Yeah, we can.
But I've said it before and I'll say it again, just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't try. We still need to try, even though we know we don't have it all together.
Yeah, that's right. We can try, we should try. I believe we would also understand if we are studying and praying. We do understand several things, not all things. We would have important clues of the times that we are living. Jesus said, like, you Pharisees, hypocrites, You would discern the sky, face of sky and earth, but you do not fail to discern the time, signs of the time that you are living in. And another prophecy says the Lord God would not do anything unless he tells his servants first what he is about to unleash. So those verses have to be fulfilled. I believe we would understand some things at least, maybe several things than we ever imagined, because nobody ever studies book of Revelation truthfully. They go in tangents into speculations. If we let scripture interpret scriptures with more truthfulness, I think we would make good progress and understand things. The difficulty is with Semyon, how we harmonize. Second thing is the data that is going on in the world. The data also helps us to correlate what is written in scriptures. Yeah, Gailin.
When we study Revelations, when John was in Apostle John was in Patmos, he was talking about Rome, right?
Where
And
was it written?
I mean the seven church. I mean, sorry, I forgot, but there's a verse that says the city that has the seven hills.
Mm-hmm.
Then I know I was told that the city that has seven hills, Jerusalem has seven hills, but there's a counterpart. Rome has seven hills also. So if that's ongoing, the Roman Catholic Church, as the Adventists look at it, they think of the Pope as the spiritual prophet, false prophet, because right now the Pope has combined all the other religions. Like he has I forgot the exact word they use, and he has invited the Muslim, the Buddhist, the high position, let's call them like the bishop positions, or even higher cardinals even. So there has been this, he's trying to unite all the religions to have one God. So I'm looking at that way. There's a possibility, as Marlene has said, that there will come a point that you can only go to to church. Only go to church. Sorry. You can only go to church on Sunday. And maybe they will be strict on this or something. And we don't know yet for sure, but there are speculations that he could be the false prophet, because he is so respected worldwide. Nobody disrespects the Pope.
But you have to come from scriptures, right? Which scriptures are you using to say Pope
Sorry,
is the is the false prophet? Which scriptures?
there's no actual proof. I'm just saying they're all speculations, but we do know that right now there are things allowed in the Catholic Church, in the higher, because I still have Catholic relatives, and they're very nice and good, and they believe in God and Jesus Christ. There's no doubt about that. It's those things that are going to be changing it's more the spiritual religion of the times. As you said, that there's true religion and the false. And I'm looking at it that way. And the false is corrupted. It doesn't have to be fully um, fake, but there's some of it that's fake.
Yeah, Catholic Church is obviously evil, but that doesn't mean you can automatically call it as false prophet. You have to bring out the verses. Here, these verses say this is the description of false prophet, and this is Catholic Church's description, and these two descriptions are matching, right? That's how we have to go. First, you have to educate yourself about the description given in scriptures for every entity. Now, if you don't do that, then you are subjecting yourself to speculation and error. Then you are not really understanding revelation. You can't miss. You would be a lot more safer if you write down the list of things wherever the false prophet occurs in Revelation. Just study all of them or list out what are the characteristics of false prophet, where he comes from, where he goes, what he does, and then you with this, take this as a measurement. Then compare this with Catholic Church, compare this with Islam, compare this with, and figure out where it best matches. So anybody will ask you that question, which verses are you using? So we should be able to give a defense. First, you have to define the false prophet. First, you have to, and second, you have to define beast. If you don't define things, you are in the air. So that's where we are trying to educate ourselves what the book of Revelation does. Right now, we are focusing on two witnesses. Of course, we drifted a little bit, went in tangent, but really at the end of this two witnesses thing, at least we should be able to list out these are the characteristics of two witnesses. And if somebody comes and tells you that I am the one of the two witnesses and my wife is the second witness, then you have this list. Is this list matching with that person? Should we not be doing that? So like that, when you say Catholic Church is false prophet, here is the list of characteristics, and here is the list of Catholic Church attributes. This is how I'm seeing. So we should be able to do that. That's what I'm suggesting, that we should come with more systematic understanding and systematic way of defending ourselves. I know people have interpreted Catholic Church as false prophet, but we cannot buy the interpretation from people. We have to do the interpretation ourselves based on scriptures, proper education of scriptures. That's where I'm going. I think she's losing. Her connection is not good.
No, her connection and that kind of stuff is really poor.
Yeah.
So, and she has to buy data. So she might have just run out of it too.
Okay. think she's coming in now.